Hello, this is Jadon Sancho. You're listening to Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 316 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's 4-0 win against Eintracht Frankfurt, and we will preview the UEFA Champions League tie against Paris Saint-Germain, and we will have an interview which is already published and out there, but we will also add it to this episode with Ed from PSG Talk to give his insight on all things PSG before that big clash. And for all that and more, joins me once again Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing?
I am doing well, Stefan. How are you doing today?
I am doing today very fine. And I'm also elated to announce another sponsor for this episode, which is Jordan Hunt from Stafford in England. And he was so enthusiastic about the 4-0 win that when he left the Westfalenstadion and ran home to his hotel room, he could not wait but pledge $10 to sponsor this episode, and wants a shout out to his Twitter account. So please go, everyone, follow Jordan Hunt at Hunt_1909 on Twitter. I hope the masses will follow, otherwise our entire system will collapse. So please do that and follow Jordan. He's a nice chap who is excited about Borussia Dortmund. And with that, I have the perfect segue, because there's another nice chap excited about Borussia Dortmund, especially this week, and that's Matthias. So Matthias, the 4-0 win was quite a culture shock, especially from a defensive standpoint, if you will, from a Dortmund perspective. But nevertheless, we'll take it, I guess. So, what do you make of this particular match? And I already know the answer, but I will still ask the question, was it Dortmund being so good or Frankfurt being so bad?
Well, first of all, it is probably the easiest Bundesliga game day check that Roman Bürki is ever going to get in his life, because aside from hardly even having to do a goal kick, he really didn't have much to do on that day, given that there wasn't a shot on target. Was Dortmund being so good or Eintracht Frankfurt being so bad? I mean, obviously it's both. It's ignoring the cynics out there, like, well, of course Dortmund can win because Frankfurt were so bad. I mean, there was that level of Frankfurt showing up, and it almost seemed timid and scared to try. But at the same time, every time Frankfurt really tried to push forward, tried to go on a break, Dortmund really shut it down very well already in the attacking third in the midfield. Axel Witsel said it in the press conference ahead of the PSG match that they were more aggressive basically in the counterpress than they had been in the previous few matches. And absolutely, I mean, if the ball doesn't go back to even challenge the Dortmund backline, then there's obviously an issue there. Now, Frankfurt did get to that position a few points. I thought what was really, really interesting is that they didn't try to test the gaps behind Hakimi and in front of Piszczek more. The few times that they did, Piszczek dealt with it extraordinarily well. And the other thing that definitely helped was Emre Can in the double pivot with Axel Witsel. He shut down a lot. He was all over the place. He made some great tackles. His positioning was good. His communication was good, which Lucien Favre also noted. So it was, Frankfurt weren't very good on the day, and Dortmund were very good on the day. So obviously, if you have a combination of that, it makes for the type of result that we got. I am shocked because I had predicted that there was going to be a Kostic breakaway one-on-one situation, given what we had seen in the matches against Leverkusen and Werder Bremen. But that didn't happen simply because Dortmund were more aggressive. I think Lucien Favre said it too. We were more aggressive, but in a good way, in the attacking third and in the midfield press and winning the ball back. So, that definitely helped cover and did not expose the back three, which is something obviously I bemoaned in the last episode.
Yeah, what I think went well and is a way Lucien Favre likes to play anyway, and I think Eintracht Frankfurt did play in a way that really benefits a Lucien Favre coached side, is that Frankfurt were surprisingly passive, and I thought they were going to press Dortmund much, much more. And once Dortmund scored the first goal, Dortmund got pretty passive in, like, we will play more in a transition now for the sort of football. And that being said, Guerreiro's goal, was it the third or the fourth? I think it was the fourth, was him counter-pressing at the opponent's box and winning an interception right there and then firing it home. But overall, I think Dortmund's system was more of a 5-4-2-1, if you will, when they were without the ball, and they really covered their outside positions well. And Kostic was not as far forward as you would anticipate him, because of a little someone called Jadon Sancho. So I always forget that obviously opponents need to adjust to Dortmund more than Dortmund needs to adjust to them. And I think that was the perfect example of that. So that was very positive from Dortmund, and especially in the way Frankfurt played. One minor criticism I will have toward Axel Witsel, and I found it ironic that he said it at the press conference, and I haven't seen it yet because I was on Talking Fußball, which you should check out, that Bundesliga show, is that sometimes he was caught in no man's land, because I think Axel Witsel is sadly a bit overplayed right now, and I think his legs are a bit too tired for my liking. And, you know, there were a couple of occasions where he wanted to press, but wasn't quick enough to close down the opponent, and then left the space open behind him without putting pressure on the ball carrier. And that should have boded, problems and danger for Dortmund, but it didn't, because Frankfurt just didn't really have too many concepts on how to play forward and what to do with the ball. But I feel like another team that can handle the ball a little bit better would take advantage of that. So while I would agree that Dortmund had a good game, I am reluctant to say they had a very good game. I think if had Dortmund had a very good game, it would have been probably like 7-0, to be honest, because there were a couple of transition moments that they really botched quite badly, where they can do much, much better. But obviously, there was another situation where Guerreiro left Chandler wide open, and the entire right to center side was wide open, and had Frankfurt managed to switch the play in that particular attack, we would harp on Guerreiro quite heavily for leaving Chandler that wide open, but it didn't materialize, so everything went well. And overall, Guerreiro had a pretty good game, obviously. But there were a couple of defensive flaws and errors that Dortmund did, that you see in the fine print maybe. But obviously, if you only allow one shot on target, and I think the expected goals of that shot which was Timothy Chandler in the 26th minute from 26 yards out, was 0.03 and went, I don't know, somewhere into the ball net that hangs behind the goal, completely off target. Yeah, I think that is quite the achievement, and doesn't happen every day that you completely limit the shots on target. So kudos to Dortmund for that. I will have to say, though, that I personally was a bit surprised to see Akanji dropped for Piszczek, just because of you want to have Akanji's speed against Kostic. But in the way it played out, obviously Favre was right and I was wrong. Matthias, do you think it was the correct move, or do you think that in hindsight it wasn't necessarily down to Piszczek or Akanji playing there, but other factors why this game went the way it went? Because I personally think it's a bit too simplistic to say, oh well, they didn't concede, well, it was because Akanji wasn't there. Like, I feel like that's not the entire answer to this question.
It's not just not the entire answer to the question. It's not even an answer. I mean, it's the breakdown for Frankfurt came well before then because they never really threatened whether Akanji would have been there or not. He would have won the same duels that Piszczek did, which weren't very, very many, because of the effectiveness of Dortmund's play ahead of them. Maybe it was just down to let's give Akanji a break because, like so many of Dortmund players, played a lot of matches recently. And
he had the most playing time of all players before that game.
Correct. And when you look at the matches against Leverkusen and Bremen, Akanji was one of the best Dortmund players on the pitch in those matches.
Still not good, but the best.
Well, no, to me, he was good. In my opinion, he was a good player in both matches.
Yeah, except for the 3-3 goal where he was caught ball watching. But everyone was bad in that play.
I was it's not, he didn't lose those matches. Just like, people who keep on talking about, and we'll talk about him in a second, Roman Bürki, look at the stats. Well, that's because you're an idiot and you don't know actually what goes into the stats. But the giving him some time off, I expect to see him against PSG. Personally, I think putting Piszczek up against PSG with Mbappe and Neymar would be ritual suicide, because they will completely expose Hakimi's positioning and Piszczek's lack of pace compared to Akanji. I don't foresee a Frankfurt-like performance from PSG. So I think maybe it was just down to a little bit of rotation, giving him some time off, because in those two previous matches, of all the defenders, let's put it that way, he was the least problematic in the team. And so I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think it was just down to rotation and giving people some time off. And obviously Zagadou played because he's still getting back to match fitness, and being able to face the like of his former employer at PSG.
I will say this, Zagadou had a stellar night. He was spectacular, especially just dancing around the first wave of pressing that Frankfurt tried to apply to him. He just left his marker in the dust, basically, with the ball dribbling forward, and created so many situations from that. I personally think that's one of his biggest strengths. And especially if you have Mats Hummels, who is obviously known for his positive build-up play, just having this as a little side flavor just makes Dortmund so hard to defend in their first phase of the build-up. And I'm still completely flabbergasted about the fact that it took so long for Favre to play that Zagadou card. So I'm all the more glad that he is finally in the team, because it would be such a waste to have this talent rot on the bench for an entire season, basically, and then, loan him out or sell him or whatever. So I'm glad he's found his feet finally, and he should be obviously playing against PSG, even if it goes horribly, horribly wrong. It's important experience that he will need, and I really hope that he has a long-term future at Dortmund, because he's an awesome player, and if he plays like that, that was pretty good. So I'm very happy with that. But you've already mentioned Emre Can, and I think we need to highlight him again. He had in 64 minutes the most tackles, 6 of them, and 1 tackles obviously, and also the second most interceptions behind Guerrero with 3. And you've already said that Favre really highlighted his communication. And I really feel, and this is obviously just a short-term observation because we've only seen 2 games so far with him and his involvement in the starting lineup, but I really feel he is exactly the type of player that Dortmund desperately needed, and he can make this defense much, much better. Obviously can't cure every problem there is, but already, suffocated a lot of potential fires.
No, absolutely. I think, I tweeted it after the match. We'll look back at this January transfer window as one of the best, maybe not overall transfer windows, but definitely one of the best January transfer windows Dortmund's had, maybe ever, but definitely a long time, since you added the goals from Haaland and then everything that Emre Can adds. So Dortmund are much stronger now than they were 2 months ago, without a doubt.
You know, it's funny because before the game there was an interview by Roman Bürki. I think The Zone did it, where Roman Bürki basically talked about Haaland being always the first on the training ground, and he says he's usually the first, and basically he flicks on the lights, and then you already see Haaland there lifting weights or whatever. And you know, even on his days off, Haaland is there and receiving treatment or whatever. So just the complete professional and exactly what we talked about in previous shows, that this sort of you know, professionalism and the 100% in it to win it mentality is something that will lift Dortmund up. And I think we will get the same from Emre Can, who you know, once said that he's trying to become the best player in the world. Obviously, he will never be that. Let's be realistic. But nevertheless, he has that aspiration for excellence, and we certainly see it reflect in his character, and not only the way he plays, but in the way he commands the players around him. And I think that might be even might be even more important than just his footballing skill, but the leadership. You know, he could be I think he's just a natural leader. I don't know if he always was that person, but he is now, and he knows his role at Dortmund. He knows his responsibility. And what I liked after the game, when I think he talked to Sport 1, and he said that he is finally feeling important again, and he didn't feel like that in months. And I can only agree with that. Right now, he is very important at Dortmund, and after such a short time, which tells you a lot. And what I personally like a lot about it, he takes a lot of weight off Mats Hummels' shoulders, because he was brought in and everyone talked about Hummels' leadership skills, and basically he needs to bring in that winning mentality and all that kind of stuff. I think just putting it on Hummels' shoulders, and then maybe on Marco Reus or so, you know, maybe even Bürki here and there, but you know, a lot of responsibility was laid on at Hummels' feet, and I think adding Emre Can to that helps really with the entire dynamic in the team. And so I really do think over the long term it really will make everyone better in the team, even if Can doesn't start every game. And we've already discussed the options that he gives Favre just from a tactical standpoint. So I personally am very pleased with that, because we have someone now who can have a clean tackle at his own box, who doesn't lose his head, who has the experience of the Premier League and Serie A and Champions League, obviously, and Bundesliga before that. So just someone who is well versed in all kinds of different situations in football, and has seen a lot and knows how things go and not go. So I'm just very happy to have him at Dortmund. I know I was pretty skeptical, but knowing the windsock that I am, he's already in my very good graces. We'll hope it can continue like that. But just you know, the defensive and the will to protect your own goal, that alone is awesome too. So yeah, I'm talking for way too long here right now, but I think that game was a bit of a revelation, and especially in Julian Brandt's absence, it was good for Dortmund to produce 4 goals and to then have a solid midfield, because I feel like if you let this Frankfurt team into the game and let them do their thing, Dortmund would have had a very tough time to score, and it could have been the draw that I think you predicted. So yeah, the reason why this game went so one-sided, I think a lot of it has to do with Emre Can and how he just killed so many plays from the outset that Frankfurt might have had. So yeah, just an awesome player, and just naturally plugs inside to that midfield. So well done to Michael Zorc for that recruitment, and obviously for Favre to play him right away. The only issue obviously is match fitness, because Emre Can has not played a game for the full 90 minutes at all this season. So that is something where we will have to be patient about. And then I guess the Hood comes on for the closing stages of a game. So I wonder how that will go against PSG. But for the time being, against Frankfurt, it was very positive. And I personally think the league right now is a little bit more important than the Champions League for Dortmund. So getting that win and the win in that sort of fashion was very important. So that being said, I now had a very long sung the praises of Emre Can for a very long time, but I think it's time to highlight also the accolades of Rafael Guerreiro, who is in a stellar form right now, and I would leave that to you, Matthias.
Well, we did just have Valentine's Day, so it's okay. You know, if you want to send a belated Valentine's card to Emre Can, it's totally acceptable. No, Guerreiro, I've mentioned quite a few times the negative sides as far as defensive positioning, and obviously you had mentioned that one specific scene, but what he brings in a creative sense and also in his work in terms of he just keeps going. He never stops. Laufbereitschaft, as we would say in German. So his willingness to just run all match long. He's not one of those players where if somebody beats him or get past him that he just kind of walks back, which you do see from some players, Jadon Sancho. But he definitely books it all the way back, tries to get back in position. And on top of that, his ability to press, his ability to play out of a press is very impressing. So, what can you say about him? He played another fantastic match. I remember, it was about a year ago, where there were questions about his future at Borussia Dortmund. I don't think there are those questions anymore at this point as far as happiness and playing time goes. He's clearly the number one choice for Lucien Favre, which begs the question, what happens with Nico Schulz, who I think is just a workmanlike good backup, above average Bundesliga left wing back. But what Guerreiro offers is more than just hard work. He offers the ability to create goals, to score goals, to move into the right position. And his interplay with the attacking players is always a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think right now, especially in the absence of Brandt and also obviously Marco Reus, who we can't count on when it comes to creativity and build-up play, the way that obviously Hakimi does the same thing to a certain extent, but especially Rafael Guerreiro, the way he drifts inside, sometimes into the central midfield, where he drifts inside very early, is very dangerous. And help me out here. Which goal did he set up by just basically, I think, beating 2 or 3 players by dribbling right through the midfield? Was it the second or the fourth or the third? I don't have it right in front of me.
I don't remember.
But we all do know that it happened, and it was just absolutely fantastic. I think it was the goal that Haaland ended up scoring. But the way that Guerreiro set that one up is just so amazing right now, because he's doing it consistently now. The really big blessing so far is that he has stayed without an injury, and I really hope that there will be some rotation going on soon. Even though his absence will be felt. As we saw against Werder Bremen when Nico Schulz played there, but you need to rotate him a little bit. Otherwise, if he gets a muscle injury or something like that, that would be a very devastating blow. You want to have him in his form, and without Alcázar right now and without Marco Reus, he's also the guy to take the free kicks. And if I remember correctly, he clanked the post with one free kick that nearly went in. So yeah. Right now, Rafael Guerreiro is on an absolute tear, and is doing well what he should be doing well all the time, but can't always do. But now that he's feeling it, you can see with the confidence just that he beats an opponent on a shimmy. I mean, there's this one play where he just nutmegs his opponent, but what he does beforehand is just he shifts his weight and his feet so quickly. Is something that Jadon Sancho does well too, but Guerrero doing it in a deeper position, and obviously it needs to work out, but for the main part it does. And when he beats his marker, there's such a lot of space to run in, and he really can create from that. So he really is a weapon, and I don't want to miss him. So in hindsight, we were talking last season about Götze and Guerrero, and who would extend their contract. Now it's obviously Guerrero, and before that, we all thought it was likely that maybe Götze would extend his contract and Guerrero wouldn't, but the other thing happened. And I think for Dortmund in the long term, it's actually better to have Guerrero around, at least in the way that we can't see what Mario Götze is doing or where he's heading, because sadly Lucien Favre is not rating him that much, even though he got a couple cameos right now, but it's not like he could do much with that time. So that's obviously very positive from Guerrero and his development, which we were all hoping for, but it wasn't exactly set in stone that he was going to be that player. But now that he is, it's a massive boost for Dortmund. So that's all I'm going to say to that subject. And obviously we had another goal from Erling Haaland. But that being said, 2 assists from Achraf Hakimi, Matthias. Do you think that him becoming a dad made this game even more special for him, trying very hard to score a goal?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, he's always up for it offensively. That's never a question. He's great. Sometimes he gets a rush of blood to the head and doesn't play a pass when he should have, or doesn't shoot when he should, stuff like that. It's decision making, but he's still really, really young. To me, the issue with Hakimi is always defensive positioning.
The
it's
question
not
is now that he is a dad. Do you think his father instincts kick in and he will become more protective of the goal as well?
I highly doubt that.
All right, fair enough. Well, anyway, he got 2 assists in this game, and two very nice setups. Matthias, how surprised were you to see Lukasz Piszczek score a goal with his left foot?
You know, we're going to talk about fatherly figure. Lukasz Piszczek is definitely it. I love seeing him score. He's a club legend. He will always be a Borussia Dortmund guy, even though obviously, he was at Hertha before, with Lucien Favre. But that was just great. At a point in time where you were a little worried that it could, that this could just be one of those more difficult matches to score because Frankfurt were just playing so defensively and actually relatively defensively solid at that point. And it was the right type of goal in the right situation. Obviously, it's surprising every time Lukasz Piszczek scores. It's not really his thing, but every time he does score, it's always really, really important. It's usually not like the 5th goal in a 5-0 or something like that. It's a meaningful, important goal, and it was again in this match.
Yeah, definitely. I think Dortmund taking the lead was absolutely key in this game, and once they did, I already talked about it, the dynamic of the game shifted heavily into Dortmund's favor, and they really made the most out of this game. And what I appreciate ahead of a Champions League game is not there was a 4-0 rout, but actually the maturity that Dortmund showed overall in this game, especially at the back of this performance against Leverkusen, where that maturity was lacking in long stages. And so that was very positive from Dortmund overall to respond like that. I really hope they can replicate it on Tuesday, even if PSG will obviously be a completely different beast than Frankfurt were. But we mustn't forget that Frankfurt dealt with RB Leipzig twice in a row, and I think they shellacked Bayern Munich 5-1 this season. So they can kill good teams, and they can put coaches in the hot seat or actually out of them. So, this is a team that can be very dangerous and also be very dangerous to Dortmund with the attributes they have, because Frankfurt are a very physical side. Emre Can was carrying sort of a limp throughout the entire game because Timo Chandler clipped him, I think, after 21 minutes or so. And you had Sebastian Rode with a couple of crunching tackles, as you would expect. So Dortmund really needed to get into this fight and not just try to play beautiful football. And I think they did this quite well. And hence we have this result to talk about now. And it looked a bit more positive. Obviously, nobody else in the Bundesliga sort of slipped up. Gladbach beat Düsseldorf 4-1. Bayern beat Cologne 4-1. Leipzig beat Bremen 3-0. So, and Leverkusen, if you want to count them as well, they beat Union Berlin in stoppage time with a 3-2 win, which was probably the most exciting game of the match day. So all the rivaling teams for Dortmund, got a win, which means Schalke aren't. But if we are honest, this Schalke team right now has so many problems. They probably won't make it into the Champions League, because they are very dreadful and on a terrible run. I think they've only won one win out of the last 6 games, 4 draws and 1 loss. So, it's not going great for the Royal Blues, which is obviously well received on this podcast. But Matthias, how much did you miss Julian Brandt and Marco Reus in this game?
Well, I think until the Piszczek goal, you could notice their absence a little bit. Even though I think Azad played well, he keeps on trying and he plays well. You missed them a little bit, but then in the second half, obviously there was total capitulation on Frankfurt's side, and Dortmund just steamrolled them. And you didn't miss them, which was great, which was a perfect response. So in the first half, kind of missed them. In the second half, didn't even think about them.
Yeah, well, the problem really is that they are so good and so important that you will always miss them, even if you don't, if you know what I mean. So it probably still would be cooler if you have them on the field. But kudos to Torgan Hazard, really, even though he really had a luckless performance. He put in a tremendous shift, and I think that's all you can ask for. I mean, he is playing for his position right now because of the competition in this team. And when he gets the chance, he wants to make the most out of it. So it's really unfortunate for him that due to a couple of bad touches and a couple of passes played more into the back than in front of him and stuff like that, he couldn't make the most of it, even though there was space, time, and opportunity for him to maybe get a goal or an assist or two here and there. But overall, what I value above all is that he really ran his heart out and really helped this team in the overall defensive shape, I think, because that was just key. And he helped with that. He tracked back and did all the things you need to do, the basics, and the other stuff will come by itself at some point, especially Hazard, who was on a very good run, but also needed a bit of time to get there. And I would assume if he gets more playing time and more opportunities, he'll start scoring again. So I'm not too worried about him, to be honest, in his output. It was just, a lot of misfortune in this game for him not to either grab a goal or an assist, but still a good performance for my liking. So there you have it. Otherwise, I think we have talked quite enough about this game. Dortmund are, remain 4 points off the lead and 3 points behind Bayern. Next Saturday, they will travel to Bremen, but we will talk about this game in our next episode on either Wednesday evening or Thursday, but there will be a post PSG and pre-Bremen episode. So with that all being said, Matthias, I think it's time to move on to the Champions League, which is obviously a big game against our former coach Thomas Tuchel. You can see that the whole narrative is out there, and I think we were all pretty annoyed in anticipation of that when the draw was drawn. So what is your feeling going into this? Are you optimistic? Are you anxious? Both? What is the overall Matthias Zuk mood going into this Champions League game?
Well, you know me, I'm an optimist. But I'm an anxious optimist because obviously when you're facing the likes of Neymar and Mbappe running at a defense that gets too exposed, usually due to the tactical setup, it makes me a little concerned, and it makes me concerned not necessarily because I think Dortmund are going to get blown away by 5-6 goals. It makes me concerned because I think it makes Lucien Favre concerned, which means he's going to probably just cede all possession to PSG, and probably play a pretty deep, focused on counter-attacking game, which can work against PSG. But I'm always worried when you let a team like that run at you, given the quality that they have, that sooner or later, they're just going to score a couple of goals. And then it's just so hard for you to get out of that defensive mindset. I would love to see a similar game plan as Dortmund employed against Barcelona at home. And Axel Witsel actually referenced that exact match and saying that's how we need to play against PSG. And then we don't have to worry about a team like PSG. And I completely agree, because if there's one thing PSG has proven in the Champions League, irrespective of who's on the touchline, when they're put under pressure in the Champions League, they kind of have this habit of crumbling in the most amazing fashion possible. So given that, and given the weight of expectation on their shoulders in the Champions League, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic in this match, given that Dortmund had a good result against Frankfurt. PSG had a bad result, you have to say, against Amiens in a 4-all crazy match. Really fun to watch, if you don't care who wins, per se. And Neymar being Neymar, you know, he hasn't played in a while, but he's going to be playing, all reports suggest, including Tuchel suggesting it. So yeah, there's a narrative there. I don't think it'll really play into many of the players, because there's been a huge turnover in players. It obviously won't play into Lucien Favre, who got asked about that same question in French, and he just said he's a colleague from Paris. Basically, that's about it. And there's nothing there. He's like, we're playing against PSG. We're not playing against Thomas Tuchel. Obviously, for someone like Michael Zorc or Alki Watzke, there's a little bit more there. And I think there's more motivation for Thomas Tuchel than necessarily on the Dortmund side for getting one over him. So all that being said, I expect a very entertaining match with a lot of opportunities and nobody having a clean sheet.
Yeah, I think this is what we have to expect. I think it's going to be a bit more of a shooter. I feel like it's going to be going more into the direction of Dortmund's game against Leverkusen. I don't know if this time Dortmund will have a better end, but I feel like that PSG going out of this game, no matter whether they win or lose, that they will be very comfortable with the amount of away goals they score. So that is my worry, and I completely agree with you in the sense that Dortmund absolutely cannot afford to sit back and too deep, because we all know that Dortmund under Favre, if they are passive, they somehow do not manage to win the ball sort of in midfield often. So that means that they just track back too much. We see them, in the worst case, that often happens for them against Bayern at the Allianz Arena, where they basically just get pushed into their own box. And as soon as that happens, or sometimes even sooner, but lastly, then Dortmund completely, that's just not territory they are comfortable in, to be honest. And when that happens, there's all kinds of ball watching, and obviously coincidence plays a big role. And Dortmund tend to not do well when they are pushed back. And we all know a Thomas Tuchel team can have a very good and a very patient positional play, and I assume they will have that in the Champions League if you let them. So Dortmund, under all circumstances, must not allow PSG to just play the ball around, get comfortable in their own circulation, and then push Dortmund back. If that happens and PSG come away with like 65% possession or something like that, that is going to be an absolute nightmare for Dortmund. And I would assume that they will be punished for that, because we've mentioned Neymar and Mbappe so far, but obviously there are also other players like Verratti and Di Maria who really can hurt Dortmund with the way to unlock this team. And so yeah, I have to say it's kind of weird. We had a Champions League tie against Barcelona, for example, but so far, for some reason, I feel like this is the best attack Dortmund are to face, or maybe just from stylistically the attack that can hurt Dortmund the most. I mean, Dortmund went up against Bayern Munich obviously this season, but even Bayern's attack I don't rate as highly as PSG's. So Dortmund really need to push for their own luck and play defense by playing offense, basically. So I agree with you and Mr. Witzel that Dortmund need to counter press as often as they can. Obviously, you can't do it for 90 minutes, and Dortmund need to be mature about it. But if they get pushed too far behind, it's not going to go well. That being said, if they push up high, they can also be punished with the space leaving behind them, because with the quality that PSG have, I'm afraid there's no greater solution to Dortmund to just stop this team. You just will need to have a good day and a lot of defensive discipline and hope for the best and really hope that you can put PSG on the back foot, which Dortmund, I would say, could have done much, much better with a Julian Brandt and a Marco Reus in there. But, you have to adjust to what you have now. And so a lot of responsibility will lie on the feet of Rafael Guerreiro and Achraf Hakimi to, really fire start this offense. And obviously you have Jadon Sancho in the next phase to be the opponent here and there, and then Haaland to finish it off. Or however Dortmund going to score goals against this team, there are certainly many ways to do that. So, let's try to focus on Dortmund's attack. How do you think Dortmund can break down this Paris team?
Well, I agree with you as far as, Dortmund need to be aggressive in their pressing. Fast transitions are key, not the long holding onto the ball, methodical approach. I just don't think that's going to work against PSG. That's not going to work against Thomas Tuchel, because odds are he's going to want to play that way at times.
Well,
So
I do think Dortmund need stints of empty possession just to get a breather. Otherwise, they won't be able to succeed either. So it all needs to be balanced. But overall, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, quick runs into the channel when you have the likes of Haaland, who's not intimidated by anybody he's facing. He's proven that in the Champions League. And Sancho, who's just in an absolute amazing vein of form right now. That's, to me, what you need to do is hit those quick transitions after an aggressive press, be it in the attacking third or in the midfield with an Emre Can, who I feel like his passing against Frankfurt was better than it was against Leverkusen. He's still shaking off some rust, so I think we'll get there. That, to me, is the key thing. And by God, do not expose your back three by pushing up your fullbacks too high. They have to be more disciplined defensively. If they're not, they're going to get torched.
Yeah, that is true. But that all being said, a lot obviously will be decided of this game in the later stages, and we've already talked about the fitness deficiencies of both Witzel and Can. So my question to you is, who is going to be the guy who comes off from the bench to make a positive impact for Dortmund? Who are the players on the bench right now that you are counting on to make a positive difference here?
Well, I mean, if somebody comes off the bench in the central area, it's probably going to be Dahoud. All indications are that Dahoud will be coming off, and he actually did quite well the few times he's come on now recently. For some reason, Gio Reyna is seen as a key option, and he's young enough to not care who he's playing against. I also, to be honest, wouldn't mind seeing if someone needs a break centrally, to move Guerrero centrally and bring on Nico Schulz at that left wing back position, because I think you're not opening yourself up defensively on the wing. And Guerrero, as we know all too well, plays exceedingly well in the central position. So those are all options available to Favre. I think the Dahoud scenario is the most likely because he's the most mature and most natural in that position.
Yeah, the only player you left out there so far is Mario Götze. I don't know what will happen. Theoretically, it could be a game where there's a positive headline coming out of it for him. I don't know that, but one can hope. But we just don't know. But Mario Götze obviously has all the experience needed to play on this level and on this stage. So we will see. But yeah, it's Dortmund will have a handful with the likes of Di Maria and Gay and Neymar and Mbappe and Icardi, and I mean that's really all there is to say other than referring to the interview, Matthias, that we have. Other than that, you have a couple more points to make before we give it over to the interview.
Well, I mean, I don't really have any other points other than I don't think Dortmund are going to win, but I don't necessarily think they're going to lose. So obviously, I think that's probably going to be a draw.
Yeah, I think I gave a prediction like a 3-all or 2-all draw. I think it's going to be in these 3 years, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see, Matthias. We will be back after this interview with me and Ed from PSG Talk. Hello and welcome to this little special episode of the Yellowwallpod, or another segment. Either way, I'm joined by Ed from PSG Talk. Hey Ed, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very fine myself. Obviously, there is a very big game coming out.
Just a little
Dortmund. Yeah, on Tuesday against the league leaders of Ligue 1. And I'm very excited to have someone capable to talk about this particular game. Ed, there is obviously a lot of history between the PSG coach and Borussia Dortmund. But before we talk about Thomas Tuchel and all that, I just want to know in general what the mood at the club is and how things are in Paris with Neymar and Mbappe, and do you have any star trouble right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, so PSG fans are a fickle bunch. We've been through a lot. The 6-1 to Barcelona, the loss last season to probably a Manchester United C squad. There were so many injuries. So we've definitely seen our lowest of lows in the Champions League. But this season, I think fans are optimistic. When the draw came out, I think a lot of fans were saying, okay, Dortmund, that'll be exciting. You guys have a great atmosphere there. We still fancy ourselves to go through. We think that PSG has the better team on paper. But again, that on paper really doesn't mean a whole lot. And given our history, we're cautiously optimistic heading into this game. You asked about Neymar and any star drama that is going on. So he today, and we're recording this before the match against Amiens on Saturday, which Neymar will miss. It's going to be his 4th game that he's missed. He picked up, what I looked up on WebMD, which is basically his injury is some kind of rib cartilage. He's got some kind of injury to his ribs, that he suffered on February 1st against Montpellier. And the manager Tuchel has not been very forthcoming on what the real issue is going on there. He keeps kind of hiding behind the medical staff and saying, we're going to be cautious with him. I'm going with what my medical team tells me. But then we see Neymar training, photos of him, looks perfectly healthy. His birthday was the day after. His birthday party was the day after his injury. Looked fine there. He recently traveled to Germany for a fashion show. He was photographed with models, all that. So he looks fine from all the photos, but I think what's going on is PSG does not want him injured in a meaningless game against Amiens or Dijon or somebody like that with the game against Dortmund coming up. We know that the past 2 seasons he's missed out on the knockout phase due to injury. So I think that they are doing everything possible to make sure that he is on the pitch Tuesday night in Dortmund. So I think a lot of the papers are kind of creating speculation and rumor.
I was just going to say, PSG left just enough space for all the conspiracy theories to float around.
Exactly. They're like, I think I saw in one of the Spanish publications, they were like, oh, the Neymar went to Germany and behind the scenes, Leonardo and the executives are mad. But Tuchel came out and said, yeah, we've known about this for 4 to 6 weeks. And PSG actually has a relationship with the sponsor that Neymar was visiting in Germany. So they probably told him, yeah, go ahead. Definitely go. So I don't think there's any drama behind the scenes. Neymar is playing outstanding this season. I think he's going to be perfectly fine on Tuesday. They are just basically wrapping him in a bubble wrap and making sure that he's not injured before Tuesday.
All right. Yeah, that's obviously good to know. So Dortmund will be fully prepared. That being said, preparedness, I think, is a big thing for this game for both teams. You said that PSG usually play in a 4-2-2-2 system with, I assume, Mbappe and Icardi up front, and then sort of Di Maria and Neymar tucked in behind, and then you have a midfield of Verratti and Gueye. The big question is, PSG are a big star ensemble. They are a team that's backed by a, big sponsor, and that usually means that these sort of teams, and I would say the only big star ensemble that really pulled it together in my recent memory is Real Madrid, right? When on this epic Champions League run where really you had a cohesive unit. But usually that's the biggest problem, that you do not have the cohesion, that the 4 or 5 attacking players do whatever they want and try to play glitzy football, and then everyone else needs to basically clean up behind them, and that offers a lot of space and makes them prone to then fall on the big stage, which PSG, I would say, has done before.
Yes, I would say so.
So I assume that's your concern, and but I still would like you to talk a little bit about this, how big the concern really is, and if this has improved for PSG, or are there any signs that the defense will have a lot of trouble because of a lack of cohesion, or has Tuchel done his most to paper over the cracks?
Absolutely. So I'll say, I think this is the strongest PSG side we've ever seen, at least in the QSI era. If you look at 2017, when they did bring in Neymar and Mbappe, that's really the big expenditure. But since then, they've been really good about finding, and mostly because of financial fair play, but they've found players who can contribute, who didn't cost a whole lot. So like Idrissa Gueye, for example, or Ander Herrera, who was signed on a free. They just, there's another 17-year-old Tanguy Kouassi who will likely be on the bench. He came up through the ranks. So they've brought up players, they found free transfers, and they've surrounded Neymar and Mbappe with a team of guys who like to work hard. I think Idrissa Gueye had the most tackles, or maybe second most behind Kanté in the Premier League. So they've just surrounded them with really talented guys who like to work and feed the 2 stars up front. On defense, we are a little weak. A lot is just due to injury. Marquinhos is our key player. Everyone's going to talk about Neymar and Mbappe, but when it comes to defense, it's all about Marquinhos. And he is a natural center back. But what Tuchel has done is moved him up the pitch a little bit into a defensive midfielder role. And so he may be there with Verratti, and maybe Idrissa Gueye starts on the bench. That's a possibility. Or Marquinhos might play in the center back role. So, but he's been out for a few weeks now with a hamstring injury, and he's only going to be coming back today against Amiens. So that's the player that I'm going to be watching. If you're a Dortmund fan listening to this, keep an eye on Marquinhos today, or if you're listening to this late, watch a replay or just check in on psgtalk.com. We'll probably have analysis of Marquinhos and how he did. But he is absolutely critical. He's just important to PSG on defense as Neymar and Mbappe are on offense. So,
well, that's very good to know. How the biggest weak points in a lot of top teams these days are actually the fullbacks. Mm-hmm. You have Kurzawa and Meunier. How are they doing right now? Yeah,
so Kurzawa, we didn't think he was actually going to be at the club. I mean, he was rumored to be going to Arsenal and then Juventus, and then that whole thing fell through. Juan Bernat, I believe, is going to be back. He's another player. He's typically the starting left back. He's familiar with the Bundesliga. I believe he was at Bayern Munich before.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's been phenomenal. He came in and kind of took over that starting left back spot from Kurzawa.
But he was sort of chased out of Bayern Munich, and the club president sort of said that he just played like shit.
Yeah.
And every time PSG play on the international stage and he plays well, which he usually does. Yeah. Uli Hoeneß gets ridiculed by German football fans for what he said, because Juan Bernat, he was scapegoated for whatever Bayern's failings were, but actually, that he wasn't the guy to blame.
Absolutely not, and it's unfortunate he's had this injury. So I'm hoping he's going to be able to come back in time. But still, what is his rhythm going to be like? Is he going to be match fit? Kurzawa has played the last few games while Bernat has been out. But Kurzawa is more of a attacking player, and given Jadon Sancho and all of your attacking players, I'm a little bit nervous about having Kurzawa there and, him getting forward and then leaving too much space behind, and it could just be a hot mess at the back for PSG with you guys attacking. It could get ugly really quick. So a little bit nervous about that, to be honest. Meunier, he's pretty solid. He's another player that likes to get forward, but he has a lot of experience. He's a Belgium international. He's played in huge matches before. I'm not as worried about him. A lot of fans don't really care for him. He's kind of a hot and cold type player, but we really don't have anyone that can play there. Colin Dagba is young and he's injured. Thilo Kehrer, another Bundesliga product, he can play the right back position. That's something that may be a surprise that
Tuchel
but
goes
he's
with. Very error prone as far as I know.
Yeah, we saw that
on the big stage.
Yeah, we saw that against Manchester United, where he gifted them he did like a back pass and gave them their first goal, I believe it was. So, but maybe this is an opportunity for him to prove that he's learned from his mistakes and is ready to take on more responsibility. These are all decisions that Tuchel has to make and why he gets paid the big bucks. But our fullbacks are absolutely a weak spot, and you guys are uniquely positioned to take advantage of that, which makes me very nervous.
Yes, Dortmund often pick teams apart over the wings. So that's definitely why I asked about it.
Yeah.
So the big question obviously is for Dortmund fans, how is the relationship between Thomas Tuchel and the team, and obviously also the fans? How are they seeing him on the sidelines? Because we all know that he's a really great coach, but the relationship can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I think the fans, and I may have mentioned before, they're kind of split on him. Some fans think that he waits too long to make any in-game changes. Others think that PSG haven't lost since like November 1st, I believe, against Dijon. So it's hard to argue with the results, but we all know that Ligue 1 isn't really up to PSG's caliber, and they can kind of steamroll through a lot of teams. So you're kind of left like, is he really good, or can he get out-coached by, Manchester United and losing the Champions League? I mean, everything is on the line for him right now. If he's able to convincingly win against Dortmund, I think a lot of the fans will get behind him and say, okay, he can do it. We just haven't seen him do it on the European stage, and I think that's why a lot of the fans are split on him right now.
Yeah, I will remind you, it's only the round of 16. So if he goes through Dortmund and then fails against the next team, fans will not be behind him.
Exactly. Well, it also depends on who you play in that round. If it's Barcelona and maybe you lose on away goals and you play really well, maybe he keeps his job. I mean, Leonardo has come out, the sporting director has come out and said that, the Champions League isn't like do or die. Obviously we want to win it, but we're building something here. So maybe if we show progress and we play really well, maybe he can keep his job. But I think he has to get past this round. You can't lose twice at PSG in the round of 16 and keep your job.
Yeah, you're probably right, but I would say it's probably hard to find a better coach for PSG at this particular moment right now.
Pep Guardiola. I mean, if he wants to leave Manchester City, I wrote a piece on the site about how he may want to leave if there's no Champions League football there. So, or Pochettino is a former.
There's a lot of ifs there. Yeah, I think Dortmund also looking at Pochettino. Maybe not. I don't know if they could afford him. That obviously wouldn't be a big problem for PSG. But I don't think Lucien Favre will necessarily finish. Well, he will finish the season, but then probably not continue. We'll see, but Pochettino is obviously a name that I can imagine at the sideline and at Dortmund too. Yeah. So from what I hear, the relationship isn't too bad. Obviously, if you follow the international headlines a little bit, there's been I don't know if you want to even call it a falling out between him and Mbappe.
Yeah.
But I think that's more drama that the press writes about for headlines.
It's a case where Mbappe is a insanely competitive player and he wants to win the Golden Boot. He wants to win. I mean, he's talking about wanting to play in the Olympics and the Euros this summer. And this kid is 21 years old and he wants to win everything. And when he was taken off, it was 5-0 against Montpellier. I mean, this was not a game in contention. And I believe he had already scored in that game. And he wanted more goals to track down Messi and, Lewandowski and everyone else in Europe who scores goals. And he gets so angry when you take him off. And you almost can't blame him. But then you also have to say, look, Tuchel's just taking you off for your own good. We don't want you to get injured because you're not going to win the Ballon d'Or by scoring a 6th goal against Montpellier. You're going to win it by beating Dortmund and Barcelona and Real Madrid in the Champions League. And you can't run yourself into the ground in meaningless games. So he just needs to understand that. But I think you're right. The press made a lot more of that than it should have been.
So I think the strengths of PSG are pretty obvious, especially the pace of Mbappe and overall the possession play. I assume will be great. The positional play of a Thomas Tuchel team usually is very good, and that makes them very hard to beat. That all being said, you've already indicated you are nervous about a couple of Dortmund players here and there and how Dortmund plays. So, what are PSG's weaknesses and who you scared of?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with who I'm scared of. Haaland. I mean, how many goals? 8 goals in 5 games, and he could score 20 in half a season, like you were saying. I mean, he's a player that if you're not scared of, what are you watching really? Especially considering our defense. I mean, we have Thiago Silva, who's been in great form, and he's playing for a contract extension, which may not come, but he's 35 years old. And we've seen him both for Brazil and at PSG just, be overrun at times. So I worry about a young, motivated player like Haaland coming in and taking him on. It'll be an interesting matchup to see. Sancho is another one that I'm really worried about just with our fullbacks. I don't think our fullbacks have the pace to keep up with him. I don't think they have the defensive mentality and his ability to not only score goals, but to also create. I'm really worried. Luckily, we did make a goalkeeper change in the summer. We brought in Keylor Navas. He's won 3 Champions League titles with Real Madrid. Hopefully, he can keep his backline organized. He knows what to do. He has the experience. I think that's going to be an unsung hero of ours if we're able to get through this game with a win. I think his organization at the back and making key saves is going to be really crucial for us.
Yeah, overall, what kind of match do you expect? Do you expect a shootout since both teams are obviously top heavy, or do you think everyone will get it together because it's the Champions League and you need to worry about defense first?
Yeah, everyone's predicting a shootout, which probably means that it's going to be a 0-0 draw. But everything you look at tells you it's going to be an absolute shootout. I think Tuchel is going to maybe come out at first trying to be more possession based, pass it around, look for opportunities to counterattack when you guys are going forward, because you're going to have the yellow wall behind you. Your players are going to be motivated to score goals. And I think we're going to try to absorb some of that pressure, maybe get through the first 15, 20 minutes and then say, okay, let's start imposing our will. Let's try to get Mbappe into space. So I think it's going to be a little slow at first. People are going to be on Twitter like, what's going on here? And then I think you're going to start to see when the legs get a little tired, PSG figure out what's going on. I think then you're going to see the back and forth. And in the Champions League, it just comes down to luck. Who can put the ball into the back of the net? Maybe VAR makes a decision. PSG has seen their fair share of red cards. Maybe someone could be sent off. I think this is going to be the most entertaining game of the round of 16, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that, before we've seen actually any game.
Yeah.
So just on paper, I think you're right. So, before we go, lastly, I will solicit a prediction.
Yeah. I thought about this. I'm going to go. Why not? We'll go 3-2 PSG. We'll get out of there with 3 away goals and all to play for at the Parc des Princes.
Well, not really. If it's 3-2 PSG at the away game for you, then I'm not very optimistic there that Dortmund have a big chance to come back. But Ed, thank you for coming on. Please tell our listeners if they want to inform themselves even more about this game on your side, how to get in touch with you or listen to your show and all that.
Yes, absolutely. So we're on social media, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. PSG Talk, you can find us. Our podcast, PSG Talking, is an English podcast about all things PSG. To my knowledge, it's the only one. So you can go ahead and find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, awesome. Then thanks again and back to the show. All right, that's it for today, Matthias. Thanks again for being around and lending your expertise. Please tell our listeners how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can find my so-called expertise on Twitter at Matthias Zug.
Very well. A whole show without a Matthias Zug rant. Kind of sad. Is there anything you want to rant about that's completely wayside of Borussia Dortmund, like off-topic rants? I think we should introduce
not
a rant
really.
where we just
just something, something in general. Yeah, nah.
I think that will
I'm in a
make it
good
more
mood.
entertaining.
I'm in a good mood. Tottenham won in crazy fashion, and Dortmund played well, and I'm just going to ignore Inter. So we'll move on from there.
All right. At Matthias Zug again. You can find Matthias. You can find me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. And if you want to get in touch with all of us on Twitter or Facebook, at Yellowwallpod is the handle. If you, like Jordan Hunt from Stafford, want to pledge $10 to get a shout out or a sponsorship, please go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for $10 a pop. As I said before, you are in. And then please send me a message or I will contact you and then we'll discuss that anyway. So if you want to subscribe to this podcast, please do that via SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where I will once again urge our listeners to please also subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can at some point monetize that with tiny little unintrusive ads that will just make us a little richer and don't annoy anyone. So that'd be nice. Otherwise, sharing is caring. I think the biggest help you can offer, apart from, I don't know, sending us $1 million, is to just share it with your fellow Dortmund fans. That would be great. And other than that, I really hope the PSG game will go well for us and everyone can tune in a happy mood next Thursday or Friday. And until then, goodbye. Thank you for listening.